I serve in youth and in young adults. So back in my story for the first part, I've always been kind of a, I guess, agnostic or religious person. I've always been really fascinated with stuff like mythology, religion, stuff like that. I loved Greek culture. I loved Rome, Christianity, all of the types of religion. I just love searching up. But I first came into Christianity in 5th grade. We were at a summer camp, Cedar Springs, if you know, you know. But I got introduced to the Bible there, and I just started looking through it. I was pretty interested in it. I talked to my parents about it, but they had conflicting beliefs about it, so they kind of drove me away from that. And for a while, I strayed away from it. So throughout around middle school to high school, I kind of had this point where it was just, I was very lost, I was very depressed, I had a very poor mental image of myself. I couldn't not look in the mirror and not be disgusted. I just had a poor image of myself in every way. I just thought I wasn't enough for my family, I wasn't enough for my friends, I wasn't enough for myself, I wasn't good at my sports, I wasn't good at anything. And then, during this time, I kind of just got into some bad decisions in high school and stuff like that leading into it. Started drinking, I was smoking, I was just doing kind of all the bad things. I was with bad friends. I got in a relationship for all the wrong reasons, and it wasn't the greatest time. And then around the end of junior year, I had my first spiritual encounter with Jesus when I was just in my room. I was just doom scrolling, normal teenage things. But I was just doom scrolling, and then I just saw this TikTok about Jesus, and I was like, I just kind of started asking questions. And oddly enough, all these questions were just getting answered as I was scrolling, as I was looking through comments and everything. And it was just starting to click to me. It was starting to make sense. So then that was kind of my first step in being like, I'm not just a person that believes in a God. Jesus is God. And going through that, it was still very, very lukewarm. I was still drinking. I was still experimenting with stuff that isn't of God. And just throughout that time, I was pretty depressed. I was pretty anxious, and I couldn't look at myself right still. And I was kind of questioning God about it, but one day, after my football season was over for senior year, I just hear God tell me, he's like, Keith, you gotta go to church. And I'm like, all right, God, I will. And I landed on the Grove Church. I went to a youth service. It was Thanksgiving dinner. Jesse was sitting on my table, and that was our first interaction, so that was pretty funny. And then I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. This service was pretty cool, so I think I'm just going to go to the Sunday service, see what that's about. And in the Sunday service, I met Jesse again in the lobby, and he was like, I know you. And I was like, yeah, you do. You met me last week. So then we had a pretty good conversation, and in that, it kind of tied me into the church. So I just kept going, started being consistent. That was my next step, in just consistently going to church, consistently getting myself wrapped around God. And through that, it just kept going. I got baptized, and then I gave my testimony in youth, which was more just like a little held back. I was like, yeah, this is my testimony, guys. But, it was still a step in my faith. I kept going and just kept doing everything I could. But then, after graduation, I started serving in the youth leadership. And that's when I was like, I was an okay leader, I had some days where I was just like, I got some family stuff. I did not have family stuff. I just didn't want to go to youth. But I found that the more that I served in the church, the more that I just wanted to be there, the more that I was excited to be there. And I just started to look forward to it every time until Jesse talked to me about youth summit. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go. I didn't think much of it. God was telling me, yeah, you need to go. And I was like, okay. I was already planning on it. But during that time, I had a lot of things that happened. My dad went to the hospital, had a lot of personal stuff, so I started to get really down. I had always a down image, but that was kind of a very big low. But I kind of noticed that now that my heart was so open to God, I felt this weight lifted off my shoulders that I never really had. So while throughout all of high school and middle school, I just had this weight that was drooping me throughout the whole thing. I was just dragging myself through. Now that I was with God, I was able to have at least a helping hand with it. I was still struggling a little bit, but I had that helping hand to help me through what I needed to get through, and I was still getting stronger as I went through it. But as I was happening, we start going to Youth Summit. I'm still pretty excited. We get there, and it's pretty cool. I'm checking out the church that we went at. Worship's all around, and I'm like getting pretty excited. As soon as we hit that first song, it just clicks. There's like this sudden shift in the room where everyone is serving, and it is just the most intense feeling that I've ever felt in my life. It's like God is just right there on my shoulders, just loving me, and it brought me to tears. It was the most intense feeling that I couldn't even explain it if I tried with a million words. I knew at that moment that God wanted me to show that love to everyone else that I possibly could. So ever since that moment, I've wanted to serve in any way I could. I wanted to talk in any way I could, whether it's at Breakfast Club, whether it's at youth, whether it's right here, right now. Whatever I can do, I make sure I take every single step I can so that I can get closer to God and help other people get closer to God. Because every single person in this room, including me, has another step that they can take to get closer to God. We all take that first step to get into faith, and that's the one that saves us. But there is 20, 40, 30, whatever many more steps to go that you, whether it's just reading your Bible more, whether it's spreading the word to someone, whether it's getting baptized, it could be a huge step, it could be a small step, but every single step matters to you guys. And that's what I want you guys to know from my story. My story is a perfect example of every step you take gets you closer to God. And the closer you are to God, the more He lifts all of those feelings off your shoulders. It is the most freeing feeling you could ever feel in your life. And I can't stress that enough. I'm practically begging you guys. Take that next step, whatever it is. It could be letting go of something. It could be just getting to church more, reading your Bible, whatever it is. Just take the next step. I'm going to have everyone stand to their feet now, and I'm going to pray us up, and we're going to go back into worship.